So I'm Amanda Waterman. I'm Professor of Cognitive Development based in the School of Psychology here in Leeds, and I'll let Kat introduce herself when she starts. But we are both here from this theme, so you are going to get a two-hander from us. So I know there will be lots of you in this room that won't need persuading on this, but just to explain why we want to have one of our themes focusing on language and cognitive development. So we know that children need a language-rich environment right from the very beginning, and actually you can create a language-rich environment even from birth, so where parents engage with talking to their babies and creating an environment where they get used to turn-taking and that interaction that forms the basis for later language skills as a child develops. And those key early interactions are really important for later language development, and we know that language and communication is a really important skill and aspect of development that has a large influence on later outcomes. So we know that language development at age 2 or a 2-year-old's communication environment plays more of a role in educational achievement than their social background. So it's really important to have this as one of the topics that we're encouraging mums and carers to think about in these groups. And we also know that children who enter school with good language skills have better chances in school, tend to have better educational outcomes. So it does knock on, and we also know that the research shows that there are links to mental health, to physical health with language and broader cognitive development as well. So my background is more on the cognitive side of things, and just to put that into more kind of language that's a bit more accessible, it's things like joint attention. So the carer and the child both paying attention to the same thing. Gestural things like learning to point, very important for developing things like theory of mind and understanding of social interactions. So again, we know that starting to help parents to think about these simple things about what it means to engage your child in that way are really important for later success, because we know that these cognitive skills are really strong predictors of other life outcomes which are essential for children. And then to come back to a theme that's obviously been part of things that we've all talked about here, we know that children growing up in disadvantaged communities are much at a higher risk of having poorer outcomes. So wanting to work with these communities to help them, to help these carers and with their children to think about things like language and cognition and these broader things to help improve their chances of having better outcomes later in life is something that we want to do within this theme. I'm going to hand over to Kat now, but just to say, in that handover, that we're aware around the issue of language, and there may be some speech and language therapists here, that there is already a lot of fantastic stuff going on in Leeds. So we're not wanting to reinvent the wheel, and Kat's going to talk about that.
Thank you. So hi everybody, I'm Kat Davies. I'm Professor of Language Development here at the university. Really good to see so many familiar faces from different parts of my research life. It's nice to be in the room again. So just to absolutely underscore what Amanda has just said, I've spent this morning writing the introduction for a scoping review on the impact of the pandemic on language development, and everything that I've just heard Amanda say now, all about the effect of the environment on language. All of those aspects of the environment have changed so radically during the pandemic that I actually think this project is incredibly well timed as part of the kind of post-pandemic recovery for the families and services that we're going to be working with. So I wanted just to draw your attention, just to highlight some of the provision that we enjoy actually in Leeds. It's a really great offer within language and cognitive development. So I suppose sort of starting at the bottom right there, we've got the sort of standard health and development checks that families will receive when their children are sort of 8 to 12 months, and then again at 2 years, these health visitor checks that will happen within community settings. So families will be used to obviously kind of visiting these settings outside of the home and getting some feedback and some information on physical, social, language, cognitive development as their babies grow up into toddlers and beyond. You'll see the Baby Week logo there. I know that's happened quite recently, and this project was represented there. It was just a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, Shirley? I think it's into its 10th year now in Leeds, and I think that's a real kind of asset that Leeds has got in this offer, bringing these services together. Hungry Little Minds is an online programme that you may be familiar with, to really raise families' awareness of the importance of the home language environment and that really rich, language-rich environment for interaction, for warmth, for responsive interactions and child and toddler directed speech, and how important that is in the children's language development as they move to school entry and beyond. You'll see the logo there for our Little Owls nursery. So this is the early years education service within settings within Leeds. This high quality language rich environment, and this is really my kind of specialism within my research, the impact of early years education on children's language and beyond. And we've got some really nice data showing that positive correlation during the pandemic. I also want to mention the library offer here, because I think this is something that we're really proud of in Leeds. So the kind of the Ready Steady Readers programme that you may be familiar with, the Bumps and Babies, the Story and Rhyme Time, this kind of incremental shared reading offer that grows as the children mature, I think has great impact on, again, the home language environment, not just the children's language itself, but that awareness of the importance of language within and outside of the home. And something that I always fly the flag for is the Leeds story buses, because I think this really is quite a unique thing to Leeds, although I did hear Bradford have got one actually recently as well. So yeah, I've spent some time on Sam and Nellie, the two story buses, so mobile libraries, designed by Nick Sherratt, as you can see there, that go around early education settings, but as well as kind of community settings, supermarket car parks, summer festivals, this kind of thing, really kind of bringing libraries to families to increase that kind of awareness and activity around books. So a few of those examples, I suppose, are already around the group kind of dynamic, and I think, as Marlies talked about earlier, there may be some resistance around this kind of moving from or trialling in some areas, this move from kind of practitioner to family to the kind of group care sort of dynamic. So I think a really crucial thing for us to do is to show actually what's out there already, what people are used to. It's not as maybe as much of a radical shift as people might think. But there are, of course, additional opportunities from group care that we'd like to trial on this project. So in the same vein as Camilla, this is going to be very kind of participant-led, and again, echoing Marlies's advice, to really be led by what the interests and the needs of the women in the group care are. But some examples of the kinds of aspects of language and the ways that we know language to develop I've given a few examples here. So the importance of using language just to surround the child with that kind of everyday talk. It's not like you have to sit down and, religiously read books at the same time every day in the same way. It's talking as you're folding your washing. It's talking as you're kind of sweeping the floor. All this kind of incidental talk we know is really important for vocabulary breadth, depth, even syntactic grammatical development later on. The importance of infant-directed speech, and again, parents will be used to this. They will know it. They might not know that it's called IDS, but this kind of advanced kind of intonation that you hear when people speak to children and babies and young children, this slower speech rate, this importance of turn-taking, using the child's name, importance of eye contact, all this kind of stuff I think can really increase confidence as well once parents realise, well, I'm doing lots of this stuff already. I think to have that awareness of how important it is, and we can show the evidence base on that link between infant-directed speech and then the children's later language development, I think is very empowering. Amanda mentioned the importance of joint attention and the use of gestures, and I really like this picture here because it actually shows both, right? So the child and the parent are looking at the same thing. It's probably child initiated here, I would guess, from this picture, and of course the child is pointing as well. So children don't just point to get things. Children point to say, isn't that aeroplane cool? And I think that's a really nice, well, actually, we know that it is a precursor to lots of other kind of cognitive and social and emotional parts of development later on. So let's raise that awareness amongst our families. Let's show them what important stuff they're doing. And of course, shared reading between children and caregivers. There are some interesting myths, I guess, around shared reading that are really interesting to explore. There is sometimes a perception that you can read to babies when babies might be too young for shared reading. I've worked with quite a lot of families, librarians, other kinds of practitioners, and I'm sometimes quite surprised to hear these beliefs, but they are out there. So I think, you know, we can work with practitioners, work with other families, work with ambassadors and champions to show the importance of that shared reading and actually the flexibility of it. It doesn't have to be what I do. It can be, you know, a way that works for your multilingual family, for example. And again, empowering the families to continue doing that really important work. So there's some ideas for what we will include in the implementation of the group care model within language and cognitive development. And again, as Camilla appealed, if there's any feedback on what you think might be the most important aspects of language to use within this group care setting, we'd really love to discuss that with you. Thank you.